I'm in my bag. So soft and so tender. Daddy in the kitchen and he told me, son, listen. He said, you don't have to play the part that they wrote for you. You don't have to play.
Hello everyone, I'm Rich Robbins. Welcome to episodes 5 of Soft and Tender, where each week we explore Black fatherhood through conversations between the sons that they've raised. Our goal is to highlight the unique and universal aspects of love in Black families, showcasing how these fathers express love and care despite societal challenges, along with broadening our understanding of what fatherhood means and how that meaning can evolve. Before we dive into this week's discussion, let me introduce our guests this week. To my left, we have Sam Thousand, artist and curator. Directly to my right, we've got Matthew Brewer, founder of Grasshopper Club and entrepreneur. And to my far right, we've got my brother Olu, proud owner of Prgrssn. Fellas, hello.
How you doing, Pop?
I'm great. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us.
I want to just kick things off real quick by having you guys explain just a little bit of who your primary father figure was growing up, and maybe just a fact about that person that many people don't know. All right, so Olu, we'll kick things off to you.
For sure, yeah. So I'm the son of Fred, a Nigerian immigrant, and I think one of the things that most inspired me a lot about him is my love for research stems from him, and it started when I was really, really young. But he said something to me one day, and I asked him a question about where do ants go?
Where do they
like
go?
in the wintertime or whatever, and he looked at me. It was being very serious and said, I don't buy internet for fun, get on a computer and Google it. And I remember that being such a significant portion, and it led, what the relationship between me and my father looked like, where research is kind of at the center of it. And when you know who I am, you understand what research means to me as well. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. It also sounds like something my dad would
say as well.
Verbatim.
It sounds like something my father would say, of course.
Yeah, I don't pay for this internet for no reason. Yeah. Matthew, how about you?
Well, the internet didn't exist when I was growing up. I would kind of split the question in two. So my biological father was part of my childhood in the beginning, and then we had some separation, and then after that separation, he passed away when he was in his early 50s.
Okay.
But I will say he was high school educated. He was the most confident man in the world. And no matter what room we walked in, maybe it was irrationally based, but he always was confident, and to be a confident Black man in the world is a big feat. Yeah. And then I also had a couple coaches who really stepped in and played a father figure role for me in ways that really define who I am. Yeah. These are basketball coaches. One of my best friends' fathers took me in as a son as well. So it was sort of the combination of my biological father figure and then others who really just had the heart and the vision to bring in others as their sons as well.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, to be able to experience fatherhood through other men that aren't necessarily biologically connected to you.
100%, yeah.
That's great. Sam, how about you?
Yes, my primary father figure was my stepfather. He came into my life when I was 3 years old. And we didn't have much of a great relationship growing up, but there were times where we did kind of bond, and it was with the stars. He worked for NASA for 15 years.
Wow.
And so there'd be times where, he'll be out back, smoking a cigarette, and I'll step out there to maybe ask a question or something, and then we'll just hang for a little bit and we'll talk about what we're looking at, you know. And so he was really big in astronomy, and yeah, that kind of sparked some interest in my adulthood.
That's beautiful. Yeah. That's beautiful. Wow. So for me, I am the son of Kano Robinson. That's my biological father. Fun fact about him, one, he is from Southwest Philadelphia, and he was a multi-accomplished athlete. So he did indoor and outdoor track, he did football, he did cross country, he did bowling. Raw, a young Black man in Philly doing bowling. He was also, I believe, Dad, correct me if I'm wrong, back at the crib, I believe he was the president of the National Honor Society in his school. And so, from a young age, he was accomplished, and one thing that I've always appreciated about my pops is how humble he is in front of his accomplishments. You know, he's the type of person that if he cooks a really good meal and I'm like, Dad, thank you for the meal, he'd be like, well, thank your mom for going to get the groceries, type of thing, you know. And so, you know, as I'm putting together these questions for you all today, thinking about like what do all these guys have in common, you know. And one thing that, you know, and some of y'all I've had very brief interactions with, but this stands out to me, is how humility is an important part for y'all in the face of your successes, right? And so my question for you is, how has your relationship with your fathers or father figures shaped how you approach humility with your accomplishments and your success? Sam, I'll bounce that question to you first.
Yeah, my relationship with my stepfather growing up was a bit of a struggle, was because he was very tough on me. But he was all about, like, you know, work. He was all about the work, you know, doing the work, you know, not doing a half job, you know what I'm saying, completing the work, you know. And of course I appreciate that now more, but as a young kid, you know, especially in my very young ages, you know, he was very tough, but it really showed me how, you know, just one small win is just a small win, and you got to keep going. There's more to go, and so I think that really kind of kept me humble and moving with humility. But then also just understanding that there's a bigger picture, you know, and not just getting so caught up at, you know, look what I did, you know. And it was more about, like, you're supposed to do that, you know. You're supposed to take the trash out, and, you know, whatever, like, little small things, you know, growing up. But then that just kind of have just grown into, you know, being able to widen the scope, you know, when it comes to big projects or big things that I've done, you know, through my artistry or just in life. These accomplishments are they're big, but they're also still a drop in the bucket, and there's still more.
True.
There's still more work to be done.
I can appreciate that a lot. Putting in 1,000% effort in everything that you do. As a shorty, that's a hard thing to grasp, you know, because especially when I see my friends slacking and they playing video games, I'm like, how come I can't just be a kid, you know? But now in my adult life, I get it, you know, I get it.
Work ethic goes a long way.
And in a lot of ways, maybe we're all sitting here today because that was instilled in us, you know. Olu, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, when I think about, like, growing up, especially, like, with my pops, like, it wasn't really anything that was kind of needed to be said when it comes to, like, humility. It was kind of just something that I just saw our entire family move with. So as proud as Nigerian people can be, that proudness has to stem from, like, the culture and not about the things that you do, because it's kind of like the expectation. And so, like, yeah, when I think about, like, the humility of my father, and I think about, like, the expectations that were kind of set, it was one of those things where my father, he spent a lot of time, like, driving a taxi cab to, like, pay the bills and so on and so forth, and never, you know, complained about anything, and kind of just, like, always made sure that if he wasn't around to parent, that making sure everything else was taken care of and everything was paid for and so on and so forth. And so, like, that's just something that kind of rubs off on me. But I will say the nice thing about growing up and like that is, like, the older I get, the more he is willing to also acknowledge the work that I put in. And so I remember one of the nicest messages I ever had gotten from him, one of his favorite comedians is, Trevor Noah. Right. So when Trevor was in Chicago, I surprised him with tickets to the Trevor Noah concert. And I remember him just saying, like, yo, like, it was cool to see Trevor Noah, but the coolest thing about the trip is as a taxi cab driver, being able to visit the Chicago theater and see the inside as someone who is only able to see the outside, dropping off his, you know, wealthy customers, was everything for him, right? And so it's like that vulnerability is something he didn't really show a lot growing up, and he's becoming a little bit more vulnerable the older we get. And so, like, I don't know if that, like, also kind of leads to, like, that humility question, but I think those are just kind of, like, some of the lessons that he's taught me in general, especially around that idea of humility.
No, definitely. And it seems like humility was more so shown rather than told in your household.
Exactly, 100%. And I think in a Nigerian home, and I think that's why I'm also really excited, because I'm like, I want to talk about, like, Nigerian fatherhood. And I think one of the biggest things about that is there's a lot of unsaid things that's kind of just expected. And I think that is a benefit, but I also do think that's a little bit of drawback. And we can get into that a little bit more as we kind of talk more.
I feel that. Wow. Matt, any of these resonating with your own story?
Yeah, I mean, Olu's point, you know, my biological father, he worked in a factory every morning from 4 to noon. Now it's a shift. My mom worked super hard as well. And when you grow up in a household where both your parents are working and giving everything they can, there's just a humility that you inherit just from that alone. The other thing I would say, my father passed away unexpectedly. Another coach who I considered a father figure passed away unexpectedly. And this idea that things can change in a heartbeat is the most humbling thing to me. Like, as amazing as this moment might be, it could change in the next moment. And so there's an element of not taking that for granted and staying humble about it all. My mother was also a father to me in a very big way.
Speak on it, bro.
In a very big way. And was the hardest working person I've ever met, who's never asked for anything in return. So that's part of it too.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad you said that, because you're not the only one that has experienced that, I don't think, and I think that gives language for other people to certainly like feel seen in that, in a lot of ways. I think, I come from a lot of very strong women, and that strength is seen in a very versatile range of characteristics and qualities, and so I think that there are a lot of like traditional father elements that the women in my life express, so I'm appreciative that you touched on that.
Hi, I'm Darius Hillman. Joining me on the next edition of In the Arena, banking executive and agent of faith, Monica Rubio.
I was strong. I persevered in career and community. I realized I had lost myself.
Join the conversation Tuesday at 7 p.m. on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 and streaming on cantv.org and the CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
I'm in my bag. So soft and so tender.
The other thing that I know about y'all is that y'all are great leaders. Whether that's on the music set, side of things, or the clothing side of things, or the business side of things. Do y'all feel like that you are effective leaders because of or in spite of your fathers?
Both.
Yeah.
We learn from those around us and also carry baggage. I think we all probably have some kind of baggage from our childhood just by virtue of growing up the way we did. Yeah. I have a coach who's a phenomenal leader of men, and the compassion, the empathy, meeting people where they're at, and knowing that everyone's always going through something, and being able to meet them where they're at is something I took from them. But then, there's certain things that my father, some of the tension that we had over the years, some of the resentment was because of me disagreeing with how he carried himself or approached certain things. Yeah. And so as a person and leader, I model myself to be better than that. Yeah. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, okay. And I want to double back on your leadership in particular, because I know that you lead a lot of people for sure, Olu, how about you? How is leadership?
I mean, I think it's the same thing, right, as both. I think to answer this question, it goes back to what you were saying about your mother, right? I think I learned how to become a leader because of my mother, and I'm sure there was some role that like my father did play in that. But like I would say, my mom was when I thought about the type of leader I wanted to be, it was always more so from like the lens of my mother. But then and I don't want to necessarily say in spite, because I think one of the pitfalls of just being a Nigerian father is like you inherit the culture, and so you inherit like the parenting styles that may have worked years and years ago, but they weren't right then, so they're definitely not right now. And so that importance of speaking with your kids and hanging out and so on and so forth, right? For my father was just like, as long as I'm paying the bills and my kids is taken care of, I'm doing my job, right? And so it's like, for me, that wasn't necessarily leadership, and my mom is the one who kind of like did all of that. But I will say, like, I also realized what type of leader I wanted to be, because like I was looking for certain things from my father that I didn't necessarily get. I want to give as much grace to him as possible, because like I know like parenting is hard, and like when you're coming from a different country and trying to like adjust and assimilate and all that type of stuff, it's kind of hard to let go of certain things. And so like I don't blame him for anything, as much as I'm just like, the lack of also showed me where I wanted to pour and grow in.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that's That's a very compassionate perspective to have, you know, and one that I hope that people are hearing back at home. You know, looking at somebody's flaws and being like, you're human.
Yes.
That's why you did that, you know, and you didn't do it out of maliciousness.
Exactly.
Right. And so I can take that and I can fill in that void for other folks. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sam, how about you?
Man, I just got to say that whole you're human. Like that time where we realize that our parents are just human.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Big moment.
I'm like, you weren't born this way?
Right.
You were also a kid at one point?
You were born as my dad? Oh,
right.
word.
You're trying to figure it out just like we all are,
Exactly.
right? Like, man, this is a really good question though, because during the pandemic, of course, a lot of us had a lot of time to just think and sit with ourselves. So I was raised by my stepfather primarily, but my father, my biological father, who I'm his namesake, I would see him like sparingly growing up, and then I became a little bit closer to him like as I became an adult. And I had to sit with myself and see if there were some times where I felt that I was moving in spite of, but after some meditation and prayer and just sitting with myself, I realized that I couldn't find it. I couldn't find where there was a time. I think it was all because of, I think the leadership and the love that was shown through leadership, and I think it all just pushed me, and I think that all the lessons that I learned through my fathers and my father figures were all nourishing. I feel like they all were nourishing. I feel like when I think in spite of, like, I feel like I'm gonna show you, you know, or I'm gonna prove it, you know what I'm saying, because you don't think so, or because I can't receive this from you, you know. And yeah, I just don't, I feel like I was such a nice little boy at the time, you know what I'm saying, where it was just like I just went back to my room and created, you know. I was a creator at 7, you know what I'm saying, and so I just got lost in music and my dual tape decks, you know what I'm saying, and I remember asking myself that, and I couldn't find it.
Dang. Ah, wow. Yeah, you got me thinking a lot about just the humanity of it all, really. So thank you, bro. Thank you. I want to touch a little bit about success, right? And how success has kind of evolved for us over time. Each of y'all are very, very successful in your respective fields, right? How was success, and again, this is through the lens of Pops, right? How was success defined in the household when you were growing up versus how it evolved and how you embrace it today? Sam, why don't we bounce that over to you?
Yeah, it was so I grew up with 4, it was 4 kids, so 3 siblings. So we were a rather large family, there was 6 of us total. And I feel like when you grow up with that many siblings, at least, you know, or even more, like you really are trying to, you want your voice to be heard. You're trying to stand out, and you innately start off by figuring out who you are and what makes you special and different within the family. I was highly accomplished in music. I started when I was 7. By the time I got to high school, I was winning all of these awards, and I got my last conversation with my mom was like, hey, I got this box full of trophies, you know, like, what do you want me to do with these, you know? And I was like, well, I took pictures of them the last time, and she was like, well, I'm gonna keep them, I'm gonna hold on to them. But growing up, it was kind of like, those things weren't really celebrated. You know, I was known, I was like homecoming king in high school, you know what I'm saying? I was like very celebrated in school, but back home, it wasn't about the accomplishments. Yeah. It wasn't about the trophies and the awards. They stayed in my room, you know what I'm saying, with me. Okay. And they actually were in the living room too, yeah. But I think that it was really about just being a man and being responsible. And I think that though a lot of my drive came in like the art and the craft and, like, you know, being creative and being a leader within the school system. And I went to this really like dope, you know, state renowned high school with a dope marching band that just swept competitions all the time. So it was I was like so in that world, you know. And I grew up in Houston, Texas, so like marching band is just huge. I do have to say that my band director, because of this, my band director and I he was like a second father figure for me. And because I didn't have the best relationship growing up with my stepfather, the person that I saw the most was my band director. And that was a person that I learned what trust felt like for the first time from an adult male who was a mentor to me, because he gave me that, you know what I'm saying? So I do have to shout him out. He's on my altar at home. Like, he will forever, Ronald B. Thornton, he will forever, you know, be special to me, you know.
I'm Sean Taylor, inviting you to join me each week on the Can TV original series, Hustle, Play, Love. Let's ignite your passions, whether it's in your career, your business, your personal or romantic life. Join the conversation Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. on Can TV Cable Channel 19, or stream live on cantv.org or on the Can TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
I'm in my bag. So soft and so tender. Daddy.
Growing up, child of Nigerian immigrants, you only got 3 real choices: medical school, doctor, or engineer. You know what I mean? So like, while my father was never explicit in telling me what he wanted me to be growing up, my mother certainly was, and you know, mom and dad are a unit, so it's kind of just like, you gotta do what she say. And so yeah, growing up, like, you know, I was like the golden boy, kind of like what you were saying, right? Stayed out of trouble, getting good grades, and for me, you know, that's what success was defined as in my household, right? As long as you stayed out of trouble, you was on an honor roll, and you got into a good school, like, you'll be fine. And I think like the older I get, the more like success is redefined for me, where it's like, you should be looking for trouble, right? Like that's for me, success is like, you know, looking for trouble, and like not doing things the way that society says you should do them, but like quite literally trying to do the opposite. And so seeing my parents and my dad even in particular come around when I started my business and my brand, and seeing like how much they were just like, you know, when I quit my investment consulting job, my dad being like, what you doing?
What's going on?
you sure?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, right. But having that confidence in myself to say that like, y'all's definition of success gave me the framework I needed to navigate through the world, but I realized that that's not my definition of success. And so I'm gonna take those tools, but do it my way. And so now my dad, like, you know, when I was starting my brand, maybe I'm 3 years in, he'll send me like a YouTube video on like, you know, how to start a clothing or a t-shirt business, right? So like, finally coming around, I would say now for me, the way I define success isn't even about the accomplishments anymore. It goes back to like, just like value system, because the older I get, the more I realize like that's all we actually truly have is our value system. Can I put my head on my pillow every night and be happy with the person that I was that day, right? Not how many t-shirts I sold, not how much I did in revenue, but like, can I actually stomach the person in the mirror, right? And that's how I define success for myself today.
Yeah, that's great. For me, it's definitely evolved. Growing up, it was, you know, I saw my parents struggle at times, and I wanted to do better than that, and that was success. And then I got into college. I went to Stanford, and I remember when I first got in, that moment in high school when I got that admission, I remember thinking, okay, there's a new floor to my opportunities. If I go to this school and get a degree from here, I'll at least have a safety net of this degree that will provide some like downside protection. Right. And that became the new goal, is to risk management and to make sure that no matter what I do, have enough of a foundation so that even if things go wrong, I have something to fall back on and control the downside. And then along the way, started getting more opportunities and evolving a little bit and realizing that that's a noble way to think, but it would be a disservice if I didn't really think about maximizing upside. But mentally, that conversion from saying, I want to make sure there's a safety net here to protect me, kept me from thinking about swinging for the fence. Instead of trying to avoid falling, it kept me from thinking about really jumping and leaping. And so that mental shift probably took place, in the last 5 to 10 years. And then now it's evolved even more into, bigger than myself and building a platform that allows me to partner with people and companies, organizations, communities that I actually value. And so you can look yourself in the mirror and there's a freedom that comes with that.
Yes,
that, it's not something you get taught in school.
Yeah.
This freedom is sort of, in some ways for me, the opposite of solving for the downside. And so that journey is still a journey ongoing, but has unlocked a lot for me.
Man, and one thing that I'll say about all of y'all is that y'all really do swing for the fences, for real. And y'all be hitting home runs too. Y'all be hitting them home runs too. And so thank you for speaking on that too, because I think that the idea of the safety net sometimes can be a little bit overbearing to our accomplishments and what we want to accomplish in life. That's something that I think I'm experiencing in my life right now, is that kind of like I'm on the precipice of like, do I just take this leap finally and just do it? And there's not necessarily precedent in my family, for what I want to do. But I do have that value system though from my family, and for me, I'm like, I just need to trust the value system that it has provided the foundation that I can take this leap and swing for the fences for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you all for being a part of this conversation. Real quick, if we could just do 1 or 2 words about what you want folks at home leaving with, knowing about Black fatherhood, or what you just want them to know about Black fatherhood in particular. We'll go Sam, Olu, and with Matt.
Black fatherhood is tough, I mean, what comes to mind is that it's tough, but Black fathers got swag, man. They got a certain type of vibe to them that is about their business, but it's about there's character and there's tone in it.
Black fathers got swag, yes sir.
I would actually say mine would be like an ask, which is like, or a reminder that like, kind of like with the title of the show, right? Like, Black father, you're allowed to be soft and tender with your sons, and I encourage it in fact, because like, we need more tenderness amongst Black men in general, and I think that like Black fathers are the ones who can instill it at an early age. So like, remind your sons that it's okay to hug each other and it's okay to say good morning to another man when you're walking past them in the street, right? Just like be soft and tender with your kids.
Thank you.
Agree with both. The only thing I would add is sort of the conversation we were having before, which I think is Black fatherhood can come in lots of different forms. And obviously there's our biological fathers, there's father figures, there's coaches, there's mothers, there's a million different people who have helped shape the fatherhood experience or guidance that I've received over the years.
And with that, fatherhood is beautifully vast. It can span from biological relation to chosen family, like Matthew's talking about. Black fatherhood is particularly beautiful. It's had to endure generations of misunderstanding and mislabeling. We hope this conversation shed some light and brought more insight to your own relationships at home. Thank you for tuning in to our Soft and Tender world today. Continue the conversation by following us at Soft and Tender Series on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Soft and Tender. Until next time, I'm Rich Robbins. Good night.
He said, you don't have to play the part that they wrote for you. You don't have to play the part. I'm like, how he do that twice? Why that boy so nice? Why he cuff the mic like a baby bite? So soft and tender. Bet he like that in any weather. Bet he only bite if he don't get it twisted. I be in the gym ready to box. Why would I not? Niggas out here creeping hard on the block. My pops taught me if you can't win the fight with your brain, you could definitely throw